In this video, we're going to discuss internet options when you live in an RV, whether full-time or part-time, and we're going to discuss from the most simple to the more complex and the pros and cons of each. If you find this content valuable or entertaining in any way, please like and subscribe. We're trying to get YouTube to put our content in front of more people. We're really enjoying making this content and sharing what we learn on the road, as well as sharing our travels with friends and family. I want to start by defining what I mean by non-technical deep dive. I'm calling it a deep dive in the sense that we're going to go from a simple solution to a more complex solution and the steps in between. So that's the deep dive. I'm not going to get technical. I know most people are not technical and are not looking for technical content. So we're just going to discuss the pros and cons. At the end of the video, I will touch on two technical features. They're not difficult to understand, but I want to explain how there are features available which will further enhance your internet experience. This video will not be a how-to video. It will be a how we did it video, and it'll be my opinion based on the various options we're talking about. For our needs, we need rock solid internet because we both have full-time jobs. We're remote workers. We use WebEx and Zoom and Microsoft Teams, corporate VPN. We have Wi-Fi calling set up. We do video calls off and on throughout the day. And we need that to work everywhere all the time, plus just our applications to work through browsers as well as possible. I first want to talk about two terms that I hear get misused or confused when people are asking questions in Facebook groups and on online forums and stuff. And it's the word Wi-Fi and the word internet. So frequently the question is, what's the best internet for your RV, or what's the best Wi-Fi for your RV? And those are two different things. And I think it's important to have a foundational separation of those two terms to understand. So Wi-Fi is a wireless signal that reaches a few hundred feet maybe around your house or your rig, and it is your local area network connection. It's how your devices connect to your router, to your network, and then your router is the device that talks out to the internet. The internet is a collection of all the networks and servers that we have access to networked together. So the word internet means network of networks, and the internet, capital I, means the global internet that we all use to access all the resources that we use every day in our lives. So Wi-Fi is the signal, whether it's at your house or at the coffee shop, that allows your device to connect to the local network. And then the internet's what is beyond that router to connect you to the rest of the world. There are several options on how to get internet into your RV, and they're going to vary widely based on if you're retired, if you're working full-time, part-time. So not one size fits all, but we want to discuss all the options from the simplest to the most comprehensive and give you also an option. If you need the more comprehensive plan, we want to give you a solution on how to get professional help getting that going at a very affordable price. So I just want to start with a quick summary of the options we're going to talk about, just to walk through quickly here so you'll know what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about using your cell phone as a hotspot. We're going to talk about having a dedicated hotspot. We're going to talk about having two or more dedicated hotspots and why you might or might not want to do that. We're going to talk about Starlink, and we're going to talk about having a router that pulls all that together for you with SIMs integrated into the router to provide that cellular connection straight from the router through an antenna on the roof. So that's kind of the range of things we're going to talk about. Let's start with the simplest and probably lowest cost option, that being the cell phone hotspot. So a lot of plans, this is either activated for you already or it's a few bucks to activate that with your carrier. This plan would be the simplest in most cases. It'll have limitations. One of those limitations being if you leave, you're going to take your phone with you probably, and as soon as your phone's gone, your internet's gone. So if you're monitoring temperature and humidity and leak detection, water leak detection, and pet monitors and stuff like that, and those need internet access typically, then when you take your phone, those have no internet access. Another pro would be low cost, easy to turn on, but another con would be that wireless from those things isn't that robust. You can join a few devices to it probably, but you're not going to have a house full of equipment. If that's your need, then that's probably not a fit for you. Another con of the cell phone as a hotspot would be lack of diversity. I'm a big fan of network diversity, having two or more options at all times. And with the cell phone, you have one carrier typically, and Despite all the coverage maps and all the commercials, one carrier is not everywhere. If you travel enough places, if you travel long enough, you will find a spot that your carrier is not providing access to. So when people tell you we've done this T-Mobile home hotspot thing or on their phone perfectly, wonderfully for all this time, no offense, but that just means they haven't been enough places yet to see it fail, because if you go enough places and travel enough, you will see that fail. Another somewhat simple option is the hotspot from your cell phone carrier. This would be a small box that puts out the wireless signal that you join, just like your phone in hotspot mode. It would also talk to the cell phone company's towers and provide that router function to connect your network here locally to the internet connections upstream. This is another affordable option, probably a simple option. A negative again would be single carrier. If you're somewhere that it's not providing service or it's saturated, which does happen, then that option is no good for you at that point. Another con with this option of having a hotspot is your hotspot device is usually sitting inside your rig, and your rig is a metal box, and Wi-Fi and cell phone signals don't really love metal boxes. So unless your hotspot provides a connection for an antenna cord that can go out and put an antenna on top, then probably you're going to have limitations on connectivity speeds and things like that by having a hotspot sitting inside the house. So a next step up from one hotspot would be two hotspots, preferably on two different providers. So get a plan from Verizon and T-Mobile, or T-Mobile and AT&T. Kind of check the coverage map, see where you're going to be going, maybe see who has the better coverage, where you know you're going to be spending your time. But two hotspots at least gives you that carrier diversity. I wouldn't recommend having them both on at the same time. They're not going to manage the Wi-Fi RF signal between each other, so there's going to be some noise and chaos that could cause performance problems just simply by the fact that you have two competing devices in a small space, really competing for those same exact frequencies of airwaves there in the RF space. So, the simple matter is that two hotspots is easy. The more complex matter is when you get somewhere, you have to figure out which one works best, turn that one on, and join your devices to that one instead of the other one. I've been seeing ads lately more and more for a hotspot option called TravelFi. I know very little about it except for reading on their website. It's TRAVLFI. So they seem to be a hotspot provider that says they will talk to whatever cellular company is nearest and best to you. I didn't see anything on their website talking about the networks that they connect with, if you can trust that it's going to be all the big boys or if it's just going to be some third party stuff. It's got to be some good coverage to be able to be a successful business, obviously. So I don't know really how well it works. I read mostly good reviews from people that have had it. At this point, you've got the diversity. If that device can talk to every cellular company that's out there, I just don't know with personal experience, but that is a type of hotspot option that may be valid. They have different tiered plans depending on how many gigabytes a month you want to pay for. Or when I looked today for this video, it looked like $130 a month gave you unlimited access. So that's not a terrible sounding plan. I just have no experience firsthand, and I don't know anybody in my immediate circle who's used that. But certainly I would say it's worth looking into. Another option I hear talked about a fair amount in the motorhome world is WineGuard. And I truly don't know who all WineGuard has partnered with in the RV industry. I just read their website a little bit though, and to me, knowing what else is available out there, they seem like a pretty expensive and pretty limited option. I'm not disparaging WineGuard or the company that makes them, or if you have WineGuard and it's working great, super happy for you, honestly. But I think anybody looking to add a new system, I wouldn't push somebody down the WineGuard path just because of the current state of things based on their website. They may do some updating, they may make themselves relevant and become a really good player. I just don't think today that WineGuard is a solid option. Another point I hear discussed a lot is what booster should I get, right? So we have boosting two types of signals. There's two signals in our life that we're talking about right now, Wi-Fi and cellular. You wouldn't boost your home Wi-Fi necessarily, and there's other ways to deal with that if you have range issues in your motor home or whatever. That being additional access points. But if you want to boost yourself into the campground Wi-Fi, or you want to boost the 4G, 5G signal, there are products out there to do that. I'm really not a fan of those because they tend to disappoint people. There's a lot of caveats to how they work for them to work well and work right and provide you a result that's meaningful. For example, the 4G, 5G boosters, most of them only talk on a certain number of channels. So when your phone or your tablet that has cellular connectivity is built, it's talking on all the channels to the cellular provider. All the channels means just think of a multi-lane highway, more bandwidth available. The boosters tend to have a limited set of those channels. So it'll be frustrating in this because this booster sitting here in your rig giving you this really strong signal, and we tend to equate, all the bars as being all the bandwidth. But really the bars are just a signal strength to the nearby tower outside or now this booster in your house. So if you have this booster that gives you a strong signal, but it's only talking on a limited set of channels out to the cellular carrier, you're going to have a frustrating experience because the bandwidth's never going to be what you're hoping for. And you're going to see all these bars and this crummy speed and be disappointed. Similar with a Wi-Fi booster. Most campgrounds' Wi-Fi is terrible, let's face it. I think lately more have been investing. I've been hearing and experiencing myself some improving campground Wi-Fi where we are today. Every user can stream all the video they want and it seems to be fine. I know they invested heavily 3 years ago. And but that's the exception. Typically, they're terrible, and the fact is their network is either poorly engineered, their wireless infrastructure for their campground can't handle the number of users, or they don't have enough access points spread around the campground to balance the load over an adequate number of access points, or their upstream bandwidth, honestly, is probably too small. And especially for 50 or 100 or 300 or 800 campers and RVs and motorhomes to be streaming video. So back to the Wi-Fi boosting, you'll just be boosting yourself typically into a really crummy network with really crummy upstream. So again, I think boosters are not the way to solve things. For cellular, I prefer to put the antenna on the roof or to have a pole where you can get the antenna way up high and solve that. But boosting, I don't believe is a credible technology. But I would add, if you're using boosters successfully, good for you. I don't mean to disparage those companies, those products, or people who are using it successfully. I just warn people based on everything from my experience and the hundreds, if not thousands, of threads I've read about the experience that people have had. And I want to caution you not to waste money on that unless you're completely certain of what you're doing. Another great option these days is Starlink. Starlink is a low Earth orbit satellite constellation where you have a dish on the ground that talks up to these satellites and provides you internet access from outer space. And then they have a router that provides you a wireless signal or wired into your network setup. Starlink is great about half the time or more. It has saved us from a poor cellular experience, but it comes with limitations. And number one being is they call it obstructions. You cannot have obstructions. If you do, you will have an outage. And the app will tell you you'll have a 10-second outage every 2 minutes based on these obstructions. So obstructions typically are trees for us, right? We're in campgrounds. Nice campgrounds like to have trees. We try to get sites without trees around us just because if we need Starlink, we want to have a great view of the sky. You can actually use a smartphone with the Starlink app even before you get Starlink. And there's a check obstructions button. And it has you go outside and the spot that you might put the dish and kind of aim it at the sky over and over and over, kind of like doing a fingerprint scan on the button. It's going to have you scan that until it has a good view of the obstructions and tell you pretty realistically if the Starlink dish would work well in that spot. So that's pretty cool. Starlink is a low Earth orbit network, so the latency, which is the delay, the amount of time the signal takes to go back and forth, it's really low compared to the old high Earth orbit satellite carriers. So things like gaming, video on WebEx and Teams and Zoom, all those things work really well on Starlink. Today, Starlink does not have any bandwidth caps, any data limits. They've talked about it a few times, but it's never come to pass. There's lots of plans. I don't want to go into them because they change often. The names, the cost, the limitations, things like that change a lot. And another huge thing I love about Starlink is on the mobile plan, used to be called Roam, used to be called RV. You can, and it'll be named something else again in a week. You can pause the plan. You have to do it a few days before the end of your billing period, but you can pause if you know you're going to be not needing internet or the cellular is going to be super good where you're going. So we pause it as often as we can, honestly. Save 150 bucks a month, and that's been a huge plus. If you are a Starlink user, like everything else, I recommend you have a spare cable. When we bought ours, it came with a 75-foot cable. I've read more recently they come with a 50-foot cable. This is the cable from the router where the power is plugged in out to the dish. You can put the dish on your rig, you can put it on the ground, you can put it on a pole, wherever you want to mount it. I suggest buying a 150-foot cable as a spare. And then if you did have some obstructions where you were, maybe there's a chance you could run that longer cable over and get out from under your obstructions. So now we've discussed from the simplest hotspot on your phone up through Starlink. And the next thing to talk about is the more comprehensive solution, which we've used and which has been very reliable. A lot of times the questions on Facebook groups or other chat forums will be, what is the best internet? What is the best Wi-Fi? And again, understand the difference in those terms. But you'll always see people say, we've used Verizon or T-Mobile or AT&T, and it's been perfect. And again, I just want to reiterate, no disparagement to people that say that, but it just means they haven't been many places yet or enough places to see that fail. What you really need is 2 or more cellular options plus Starlink, and then a router that manages those connections for you to give you like a home Wi-Fi experience, always on, all the time in your rig. You don't have to manage which carrier is better. It just uses all of them, mushes them together in a VPN that their marketing people call Speed Fusion, and provides you a solid connection for whatever your purposes are, regardless of which carrier is strong or weak at that location. I mentioned earlier being able to pause the Starlink plan, and we do that as often as we can. It's worth knowing that when you need to resume service with Starlink, I can go from boxed up in the trailer to online in about 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't take long at all to set up. That may not be my permanent mounting position, but if I was in a rush, I could get it on the ground, get it talking, get back to work. If there were to be some sort of cellular or campground Wi-Fi outage, it doesn't take any time at all to get Starlink up and going. And then if you have a router, like I'm going to discuss, that can manage that for you, once you throw it in there, then it's super easy in the house to have your devices already talking to the router, and now Starlink is just available. So let's talk more about having this router manage all these connections for you. The router is really a device that connects networks to each other. So your home network, your local area network, and your internet providers are 2 different networks, and the router sits in between the two and bridges that gap and lets traffic flow. So in the case of 2 or more cellular plus Starlink and possibly plus campground Wi-Fi, what we've been using is a Peplink router. Peplink has the ability to use Wi-Fi as a wide area network, meaning when we're somewhere with great wireless, we just tell the router, join that network, and now use it to give us access. We don't have to join our devices in the house to the campground Wi-Fi. Our devices are always connected to our wireless network in the house, and then we can change out or manipulate however we need to the connections from the router to the internet. There are lots of routers available for something like this. You'll hear people say Peplink is too expensive. It is pretty pricey, but I really don't trust low-end consumer network equipment. The failure rate, in my opinion, is pretty high. The quality and robustness is not there for somebody that needs to rely on this, unless you're going to carry 2 or 3 spares and can just quickly whip one out and put it in place. I'm not saying those fail all the time, constantly. I'm saying that I don't trust them versus a really solid consumer product like a Peplink router. The Peplink router has spots for multiple SIM cards to be inserted straight into the router, and then it manages that cellular connection without needing a separate hotspot or Ethernet connection into the router from some other device. So that's a beauty. Most models have 2 SIM slots, and so you can simultaneously be using, in our case, Verizon and T-Mobile. Recently, the people we get our data plans from have started allowing some of their plans to be paused, just like Starlink. This is a huge plus to us. We might even add AT&T to the mix, because then we could have all the plans, keep them on pause if we don't need them, and then resume them when we do need them. So I mentioned Peplink and SIMs and data plans. So how to do this, how to make this work. We've partnered with Mobile Must Have, which is at mobilemusthave.com. We have an affiliate link with them and an affiliate discount code. If you use that, you'll get a discount. You'll pay the same price. This just lets them know we're out sharing the fact that we enjoy using their product with other people and gets us some traction with them. And we make some small amount of money. But we do have a code. Use that, please. Use our affiliate link. Mobile Must Have is a group of individuals who are full-time RV people themselves, and they started this business. And we bought our water filtration solution, water softener, our router, our data plans, and other things that they sell, all from Mobile Must Have. The truth is, they have really solid tech support. If you need help setting this up for a very reasonable fee, they will get you up and running. And I have a technical background and can tell you that their tech support has been very good. I've used them a few times just because I don't want to spend forever troubleshooting a problem. And they are solid. I threw them a curveball most recently, and they escalate until they get the top tier experts working with me, and including they ended up having to download a beta version of the next release of software to fix the problem I was having with Speed Fusion not running on networks on other access points other than the router. So we were having range issues on wireless when we wanted to connect to Speed Fusion. But I mean, that's a pretty deep problem, and they resolved it for me. So I can say with personal experience and great confidence that Mobile Must Have is worth joining and buying from. You get discounts once you've joined and using for technical support. Additionally, when you join Mobile Must Have as a member, you're also getting a membership into Mobile Internet Aficionados, which is rvmobileinternet.com. And they are a wealth of information as well to keep you abreast of the current state of the state for all things internet and mobile internet users. Very valuable resources. If you don't have the expertise or time or interest, then you get summarized emails from them. They have live Facebook conversations, a personal Facebook group, live Q&As, all kinds of special access to give you summarized nutshell type updates of the things most important to you without getting into the weeds, as most people are not technical, don't care. So to summarize, what we have is a Peplink router with Verizon and T-Mobile SIMs in it. We connect to our Starlink router via Wi-Fi, 5 gigahertz recommended, not 2.4, and then use that Wi-Fi as a WAN to keep Starlink in the mix with Verizon and T-Mobile, and it bundles it together for us in a VPN that they call Speed Fusion. And again, this just simply means that if Verizon fades a little bit, Speed Fusion just continues to use the other two and give you that solid connection to the internet. We also have an antenna on the roof that we had professionally installed. I wasn't quite ready yet to drill holes in the roof of our new motorhome, but we found Nick Brewer in Red Bay, Alabama area to do that for us. He's the tech guru of all things Tiffin and an amazing resource down there. So we got our antenna that we got from Mobile Must Have mounted on the roof, and it's wired into the router inside the house. It has 4G, 5G antennas inside that antenna on the roof, as well as Wi-Fi. So when we connect to the campground Wi-Fi, we're connecting from an antenna on the roof. So we're getting the best possible signal and coverage from that as well. We also have our Wi-Fi goes out over that antenna. So when we're outside, we enjoy a little more range. And inside, I have 2 access points just to assure really good connectivity end to end throughout the house. The Peplink has the ability to manage multiple access points. It's built right in. It doesn't cost any more. So if you add access points for your own expanded coverage for some reason, then you'll configure those inside the Peplink. And again, they'll provide tech support. Most of their tech support is free. It's just a fee for that initial setup help. So it's free if you stay a member of their program. And I think it's valuable to have that help because when the internet's down at your place, then it's an emergency, right? For those who are more technical, let me assure you, the Peplink has a lot of nerd knobs. There's a lot of settings, a lot of things in there that most people won't care about. In fact, 99% of the features most people would never use or even understand what they do. But I do want to point out 2 great features that they have that we've turned on because we think they add value and improve our ability to have a solid internet connection all the time. The two features we use are called outbound policy and application-based quality of service, or QoS. With outbound policy, what you're doing is saying how much traffic do you want to go out each of your internet providers. So in our case, Verizon is a 300 gigabyte per month plan. T-Mobile is 800 gigabytes. Starlink is unlimited as of today still, and most Wi-Fi campgrounds don't limit you in any way. So with this outbound policy, I can say on a scale of 1 to 10, let's send a 3, 1, 2, 3 to Verizon, say an 8 to T-Mobile, and 10s for the other two. And this is going to have the router automatically do some decent level of load balancing of your outbound traffic. You can't assure what connection it's going to come back in on, but there's a decent chance it would come back on the same one. And it is a way for you to not overuse your Verizon before the end of the month in this example. Before we had the outbound policy set up, I would check our internet usage about once a week, maybe more often because I'm a nerd, and make sure that we weren't, like, say, overusing Verizon, because if we ran out and we moved somewhere where we wanted to rely on Verizon next, I just didn't want to be out. You know what I mean? So if Verizon was already approaching that 300 gig, say at 200, there's even a setting in there to say trigger at 200 or 250 and shut that down and give you an alert so that you know you're approaching that. But I was just watching it closely, and we might pause the Verizon, we might pull it out of the active set of connections to make sure at the next place we had some Verizon in case we really needed it. But with this outbound policy and having it manage how much traffic goes over each one of those, I haven't had to think about it, and we've never gone over on Verizon or T-Mobile. The application-based QoS is a pretty neat feature. You don't have to use it, obviously, but I knew what it did, and I just wanted to set it up to give us one more little edge. And what it does is allows you to set a low, medium, or high priority for different application types. So in my case, I said that WebEx and Zoom and all the streaming video stuff, I wanted to be in the high priority. And then when we're on a WebEx call and sharing video, then we have less opportunity for there to be problems because we're prioritizing that traffic outbound from our end. That means if there were a burst of congestion, the router is the gatekeeper of all the bits and bytes. The router would say prioritize the WebEx video over some burst of something that just happened, and your video wouldn't glitch. And I've seen this work in a professional career in the past. Quality of service is a solid feature, and it works well. I set low priority for things like operating system updates, and I left everything else in the normal. And so far, we've seen this work, and I believe it's a good feature to turn on. It's not super hard. Their tech support would help you turn it on if you wanted to. But that's the two features we use, outbound policy and application-based QoS. There's a lot more in there. I just haven't taken time to see if there's something else that we want to turn on to improve our chances for success with this internet setup. So just for reference, we use between 600 gigabytes a month and 900 gigabytes a month. That's just our standard work, and then streaming all of our TV and shows. We get over-the-air TV. We don't watch it very much, but we do stream all of our content. I don't think we've broken a terabyte yet in a single month. We're just not doing anything all that aggressive. Video is by far the biggest eater of internet traffic and network traffic. We stream music. I stream music pretty much all day long. Rhoda streams podcasts a lot. Those are just a trickle. That's next to nothing compared to what video is, because those internet streaming companies are going to push all the bandwidth they can at you. If they see you have enough bandwidth, they're going to give you the biggest, best signal you can possibly fill your TV with, because they want you to see a quality result, and they'll scale down if you have less quality. So those can and will eat your bandwidth very quickly. For those of you that are gamers that are wondering, this setup would work fine for gaming. Cellular latency has improved dramatically over the years, and then Starlink has incredible latency, 20-30 milliseconds, which represents the time from my device to the satellite and back, or through the satellite somewhere and all the way back. So 20, 30, 40 milliseconds is very doable for any kind of serious gaming and video applications as well. Another benefit we enjoy with this setup is Wi-Fi calling. So if your smartphone supports it, probably most of them do these days, and your carrier supports it, then you can turn that on in your settings. And what that does is, instead of receiving and sending calls over the cell tower, over the standard cell tower system, it's actually using the wireless and the network, the IP-based calling. So these calls in our testing have been much higher quality than cellular tower-based. The other beauty is when we're traveling down the road, the router is on with an inverter and batteries. So our wireless is never down. So when we're traveling, Rhoda's the passenger. When she gets a phone call, if the router sees T-Mobile or Verizon or both, then we can make and receive phone calls. So our phones are Verizon only. If we're in a Verizon dead zone, as long as there's T-Mobile, then we're going to be able to send and receive phone calls because it's IP based at that point. It's a data based phone call, not a cellular tower based phone call. So that's what Wi-Fi calling is. Recommend turning it on. It is a useful feature. If we had AT&T in the mix, and maybe we will be adding AT&T, then at that point, if we have AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon visible from our PepLink as we're going down the road, then we would be able to send and receive phone calls. In summary, this comes down to your budget and your requirements. If I were retired, we would have a much smaller internet setup we could do without for any given period of time. The fact that we both work, we're going to pay more for the hardware, we're going to pay more for the plans. And I think this plan and this hardware is a really solid option and provides the tech support that some people are just going to need. So it's a solid way to go. Again, if you do plan to buy from Mobile Must Have, we'll include our discount code as well as the link to purchase from them. Please use that if you don't mind. It is an affiliate code and it lets them know that we're talking about their products and just kind of helps build our content. As always, if this is any value at all, whether just entertaining someone to laugh at or providing value to you, please like and subscribe. We're having fun making this video content. It started out as keeping our family and friends up to date on our travels, and it's turned more into here's what we're doing because some of those family and friends said, tell us more about sewers and sewage in in an RV. So you build a plumbing video. But it's been really fun for me to create this, and liking and subscribing will help us to continue to do that. And also don't forget to check out our Instagram account. Rhoda runs that. It's less busy when we're not traveling. We're parked for a little longer than usual right now, but check that out. It's a faster way to look at some pictures and see our journey than the time commitment of watching YouTube videos. Thanks for watching.